I'm here with Megan Dameron and Caitlin Latshaw. So tell me, what was your favorite episode that we produced this semester, Megan?
My favorite episode definitely had to be the Halloween episode. I live nearby, so I've always gone to the Beaver Township Haunted Woods. And when the Halloween episode came up, I really wanted to do an interview there. And I got a look at all the haunted woods during the day and what goes into producing them and what kind of decorations they use and how they scare everyone and where the people stand to jump out at you. And I had so much fun at that interview. I really, really enjoyed it.
And for you, Caitlin?
I agree. I had a lot of fun when we went to the haunted house. I forget what was his name that we worked with?
Jeff.
Jeff, he was so nice and he was so much fun, and you could tell that he cared a lot about it. And he scared us 1 or 2 times. Him and Megan definitely took advantage of the scary atmosphere and jumped out at me quite a few times. But another favorite of mine was Turkey Hill Brewing Company. I mean, we went there and we didn't really know what to expect. I thought, all right, I'm just going to ask a few questions, hopefully get some shots, and then we'll be out of here. But then we went into the actual brew house. It was amazing. They really gave us an all-access pass. We got to smell the hops that they brewed with. We got to taste the malts. It was absolutely amazing just to see the inner workings. We didn't even expect it, but
there were so many huge tanks. You don't even realize what goes into making good beer. So it was amazing to see how they actually did it. And the fact that they let us in was amazing. I mean, it really felt like we were really working journalists.
Oh yeah, they were so nice too. They just really, you could tell they wanted to give us all access pass. They were just really, and they explained the whole process to it, so it was just awesome.
I gotta say, I'm jealous I missed out on that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What was your favorite episode?
Yeah.
Halloween was also a lot of fun for me because I got to host and I got to be the different character, sort of. Yeah. But my favorite interview that I went on was actually the Inga Auerbacher interview that Ben Judovitz did. And it was a lot of fun because she was a very interesting woman and had a lot of great insight and a lot of good stories to tell. So I really liked that. But back on you, what was the most challenging story that you did?
I would say the most challenging story I covered was, well, we only covered 3, but I would say the one that I did with the football player and the cheerleader from BU, only because it was my first interview of the semester, and it was kind of, I just felt like I wasn't prepared. I didn't have the right questions set up, so when I was in the middle of the interview, I kind of got stuck, and I felt like it wasn't smooth. It wasn't, it didn't just flow. It just kind of, was very stagnant and wasn't my best.
I would have to say my most difficult interview was with Dr. Rashid Khalidi, who is a professor at Columbia on Arab Studies, and he came here to do a talk on the Arab Spring. And I don't know anything about that at all. So I felt like I tried to inform myself as best I could, but I mean, the Middle East conflict is such a complicated, in-depth thing that I just really didn't know what he was talking about, and I had not met him prior to the interview, so I felt a little off guard. So it was a little bumpy to start out with, but he was extremely nice, and I think he was the type of speaker that could make anybody knowledgeable on the subject of Middle Eastern conflict. So it did turn out to be extremely interesting, but I will say finding B-roll for it was difficult because I don't think Bloomsburg University just funds students going to the Middle East to get footage of their conflict. So that was a little challenging, but it worked out for the best anyway at the end.
So what's one suggestion that you have for future InFocus members?
I have a lot of advice. Time management, definitely. Make sure that you plan out, when you can do an interview, when you can, edit, make sure you have time, a lot of time to do both of those things. And definitely, learn how to network. It's so important to know people before you go into the class, because it's been relatively easy for me because I'm local that I can just be like, oh, I know the owner of this, or oh, I know the manager here or whatnot. So it makes it a little bit easier if you already know people and you can just call them up and be like, listen, I need an interview, this is really important. And so I would definitely say networking and managing your time, and always stay calm. You know, you're always going to get through it. I always tell myself, you know, in 10 years, this won't matter. You know what I mean? And you're always going to get through it, and you're always going to push through. So definitely just stay calm and learn how to work with people. You know, we all have different personalities, but we all have great chemistry, luckily. But I think it's really important that everybody just, you know, learns to work with each other and enjoys it, you know, take it for what it is.
I agree. I think a main thing that we've heard here today is time management, which is such a key part of, in any news job, you're going to have deadlines. You always have deadlines. So that obviously is very important. And I agree with the whole teamwork thing. You know, everybody needs to learn how to work together. Another thing I think is researching. Like Megan said, you know, network, know people. If you don't know anybody, how are you going to find a story? You need to look for it, you know. If you don't have the number to this place, well, it's going to be online. So, or go to that place and talk to them to get an interview. I mean, it's hard enough to figure out an idea for an interview, but, you know, once you figured it out, you have to go and get it. Sometimes you have to go out and get the news. It's not just happening. You know what I mean?
And that's definitely a lesson for the real world. Like when we have a job and we're doing, you know, we're covering stories, they're not going to like hand us every story. You know, they're going to expect us to know how to find our stories and cover them well. And I think that this class really, truly does prepare you for that. Like you really get the experience of learning how to do on-camera interviews, and you really get the experience of how to contact people and how to set up interviews, and it makes you so much more comfortable, and it'll definitely be good for the real world.
What about you, Evan? What advice would you give?
I think the thing that's most important to remember for me is that every episode is going to be difficult. There's no such thing as an easy segment.
Agreed.
Because even if you've got 2 weeks and you have all your interviews planned out, maybe something goes wrong. Someone drops, can't make the meeting time, you don't have B-roll. There will always be something and you have to troubleshoot, and that's it. You just have to think on your feet and be prepared for whatever comes at you.
I agree. I think a phrase for every week is expect the best, but prepare for the worst. Everybody's always said, you know, be prepared, be prepared. Well, exactly. Be prepared. Like, obviously you don't want to go in very pessimistic, but sometimes you just can't help it.
Well, thanks for talking with me. And that's it for this week's episode of InFocus In Depth. On behalf of the entire crew, I'm your host, Evan Graff. Good night.